Hey everyone, how's it going? So what am I working on now? I got a 2016 Toyota RAV4, and the customer brought it into us because they said they had it at another shop, and the other shop said they needed rear brakes, and they needed a caliper and other stuff like that. Okay, and they kind of didn't trust what they had to say. Okay. So I got it, I took it for a ride, I didn't feel anything out of it. Everything felt fine. I don't know the reason they took it to the other shop either. But here's the thing. I got it up in the air, and the other shop's right. It needs rear brakes. Rear brakes are grinding. They are metal to metal. Let me show you. So this is left rear. And as you can see, we are wiped away. And judging by the discoloration on this pad got hot. It got really hot. The inner pad, however, still has what appears to be a little bit of life left on it. Okay, interesting, right? So let's go over here to the fronts. The fronts are fine. There's plenty of meat left on these pads. Plenty of life left on those. Plenty of life left on those. And even coming to the right rear is not bad. Plenty of meat left on it. So yeah, the other shop is 100% correct. It definitely needs rear brakes. However, the only thing is, does it need a caliper? I don't know. Usually, not every time, I'd say 80% of the time, when you see the outside pad worn like this, then the slides are usually seized. That's usually what creates this. So what that means is these slides here, when the caliper compresses, when that piston comes out, the piston comes out this way, pushing the inner pad into the inside face of the rotor. However, the outer pad gets pushed in this way because the caliper slides this way. If the pins are seized up, it'll put pressure on the caliper this way. Then when you let go of the brakes, it'll let go of the inner piston. However, there'll be pressure on the outside pad, and it'll create this problem. So, not to say it can't be the caliper itself that has failed. However, like I said, a lot of times what will happen is it'll just be the pins that are seized. So I gotta take this apart and I gotta verify exactly what's going wrong here. It doesn't look like anybody took it apart. So if it just needs the pins freed up, why put a caliper on it? So, but you know, other shops may have, it might be part of their policy where, hey, if your brakes are grinding, we're going to put a caliper on it. I don't know. That's not me. That's not what I do. But so what I'm going to do now is let me get some tools, and then we're going to take this apart, and I'm going to see if that caliper turns on its own. If the caliper turns on its own and the pins are seized, maybe I can just free up the pins. Let's find out. All right, I'm going to try putting you like this while I break these free. These are 14s here. Okay, so the two caliper retaining bolts are out. This time I didn't forget the microphone. All right. I hope you could see that okay. The piston came out quite a bit, but it doesn't look like it's that drastic. And the fact that the inner pad is so good, I don't know. I'm thinking the pins are, well, nope, the pins are not seized. So did the pad just seize? These are aftermarket pads in here. I tell you what though, this outer pad doesn't want to move. So let me get a piston compressor for this. I'm going to move you. Let me get a piston compressor for that. And let's see if it actually moves, because I got a funny feeling then the pad just might be jammed. It's possible. Let's find out. Hang on. All right, I got my little cheesy wheezy piston compressor, and I got this thing probably 25, 30 years ago, and it served me well. And the funny thing is, when I got it, I was moonlighting at a shop, and I remember the owner, he didn't like the tool. Oh, see, it won't fit on here. It's not enough room. I might have to have like a thinner piece of metal to go in there. See that? Just need something to push the piston in, that's all. Oh, that'll work. He didn't like the tool. He was like, oh, it's something that somebody uses in their backyard. Well, you know what? It has served me well for a long time. I mean, you could use a C-clamp that you get from Home Depot or Lowe's or something like that. So now, see that? That is compressing in with no, I am barely putting any force on this, and it is compressing in with no issue. None whatsoever. So I am not going to blame the caliper on this one. Not at all. The pad is stuck in the caliper bracket or caliper bridge. I call them bridges. Some people call them brackets. I'm sure there's probably another technical name for them. But the fact that this is turning in, and you can see, like, this thing's just laying here, and it's like just basically like the weight of holding it in place is allowing it to turn in. That tells me there's nothing wrong with the caliper. There is nothing wrong with that caliper. All right, let me get a screwdriver so I can try to pop that out. All I'm gonna do is try to pop the pad itself out. Where's my screwdriver? Screwdrivers are not pry tools. But anything's a hammer if you try hard enough. And any piece of equipment is a smoke machine if you try hard enough, or if you use it wrong enough, I should say. Okay, let's see. Let's get in a little closer here. Let me see what you can see, I don't know. Yeah, this pad is like seized in place. All right, so it's the bridge that needs to be really cleaned up. And the pads need to slide freely in there. And obviously these were not sliding freely. Let me go ahead and order parts, get them on their way. Because all I'm gonna do is rotors, pads, and clean up these brackets really well. All right, let's get going. All right, so I just looked up parts prices and stuff like that, and I got everything ordered. But to be on the safe side, I decided, let me pull the other side apart just to verify I don't have something stupid going on this side. You know, but everything looks fine, so I really doubt it. But I've been tricked before. So let me just do this before we call the customer and then tell them what's going on. All right, actually, let me go get my little light that I have. That's on this side. And I just want to tell you guys, I do read the comments, and I do try to read all the comments if I can, but I literally get, and I've mentioned this before, I get 2,000 comments a week on my videos. So I do try to answer as many as I possibly can, and I do try to read as many as I possibly can, but sometimes they get lost in the abyss, and I apologize for that, but it's impossible sometimes to get in there and actually read all the comments. And some of your comments are absolutely fantastic, and thank you for that. You're very kind, and you're very inspiring too. I do enjoy when you guys say that, I give you way more information than any of the other guys that do these kind of videos. Now, what I just did was I put pressure on that caliper. Funny thing is, this side's got rust in it. Huh. But it pressed in no problem. But it's got rust in it. Hold on. I might not be able to see what I'm doing here. Let me turn this down so. But see, it's got some rust inside the piston, but that really shouldn't matter. However, see, somebody compressed this and they didn't get the booty to sit right. So what happened was the booty wasn't sitting right and moisture got in between the pad and the piston. So that'll be okay. So now, just pop this out. See, these pads, they fit in there pretty tight. They're too tight. They shouldn't be that tight. They shouldn't be that tight. But you could see water gotten in between that booty and that, but that's going to be fine. The caliper pushed in, absolutely no problem. What I did was I had it at a slight angle, and as I moved it at an angle, pushing on the corner of this pad here, as I twisted it, pushed the piston in. So that's absolutely no problem. See, this outer pad came out no problem. So, okay. I just wanted to verify that so I can call the customer just to give them all the information that I need to. I just want to also turn this pad in 100%. Yeah, it turns in with absolutely no difficulties whatsoever. I mean, like I said, it's not even enough for me to lift it, you know what I mean? It starts to turn in because there's no resistance. Once this bottoms out, oops. Once this bottoms out, see, like, which it wasn't even doing before, so it's not even lifting it. So yeah, there's no problem with that. All right, I'm gonna go make sure, I'm gonna go and start cleaning this up. I'm gonna clean up the caliper bridges, brackets, whatever you wanna call them, get the rotors off, and we're gonna go from there. All right, so we can take the cheapy caliper compressor tool off, put the pad off to the side. Just gonna put the rotor, caliper up. Gotta grab the bolt I dropped. Now on the back side here, I think you could see that, right? Let's see. You can see the one. Trying to see what you can see. You can see that, you can see that, okay. Now this is a gear wrench, and I've mentioned this multiple times. Don't ever use the gear wrench side of the gear wrench to do this, to break them free. Because you're going to shorten the life of your gear wrench. Once you break it free, then you can go to the gear wrench side. And take them the rest of the way off. Okay, take the caliper bracket off. Gonna put the bolts down to the side. Now what I always do too, just so you're aware, is whenever I take these bolts out, I always wire wheel them and clean off the end. You can see that rust there? That rust will keep building up over time and then you'll wind up with a problem. So I always wire wheel anything brake related just to clean things up. All right, so now this is gonna wanna pop off with ease. So let me go get a BFH, a big flipping hammer. Hang on one second. Okay, pretty simple. It broke free. If for some reason it didn't break free, it's got holes here. And these holes take an 8-125 bolt. Put the 8-125 bolt in there, like spray some lube in there, the 125 bolt in there, start to tighten it up. When you feel it start to get tight, stop. Don't try to use it as a press to press this off. As soon as you feel it get tight, stop. Whack it with a hammer. Then turn them a little bit, like an eighth of a turn. Whack it with a hammer. Eighth of a turn. Whack it with a hammer. And it'll help jar this thing free, because I've seen people put the bolts in there and this thing's seized in place, and then they whack them and they rip all the threads right out, and then you can't use them for anything. So maybe I'll show you that on the other side. So there, the rotor's off. Now what I always do is inspect the parking brake. Parking brake looks okay, nothing out of the ordinary there. What I will always do is I'm going to grab a can of brake clean. Actually, let me take the straw off. Okay, just clean it all up just to get the dust and stuff out, because the dust can create brake noises. Let's see, what else am I going to show you here? All right, let's walk over to the garbage can, because we're going to clean this. Sorry, I'm tripping over everything. Let me grab my wire brush out of my box over here. You don't have to go crazy getting a wire brush from any place special. However, I have found the ones that you get at like Home Depot, Lowe's seem to work the best. They seem to last the longest. The last time I purchased a Harbor Freight one, it didn't last very long whatsoever. However, they have changed whoever was making it for them, so they may be much better now. I don't know. Hold on one second, I gotta just change the angle here. And I always do this over a garbage can. And really all I'm going to do is just clean up the surface. Try to do this in a well-ventilated area. So we'll just clean them up. Okay. Cleans up kind of nicely. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to do an extra step here, only because of the issue that this thing has. I'm going to pop these off, if they'll pop off nicely, which they might not. Let me go get a small screwdriver. Hang on. And I'm going to take these metal clips out, and if they'll cooperate. Sometimes they don't cooperate. And these are not cooperating at all. Come on. These are not cooperating one bit. Why? Why are you fighting me? These are not cooperating at all. Yeah, these are not cooperating one bit. All right, hang on one second. I'm going to try something else. We're going to grab a small little punch. and a small little hammer. Move you over here. See if you can see what I'm doing here. What I'm going to try to do is just go on the inside edge here where it meets where the edge of the pin is, or edge of the slide is, the shim. There it goes. I'm going to knock these out, and the reason we're going to do this is we're going to clean up underneath where this shim sits. There we go. So now what we're going to do is we are actually going to clean up underneath here in this area. So this, I should be able to get on a wire wheel. So let's walk this over to the wire wheel and see if we can't clean this up. All right, so now, see that? Cleaning it up. Getting there. Same thing on both sides. This one I keep hitting the boot too much, so I'm going to pop the pin out, just so I can fold the boot over. There you go, it's cleaned up. Now you put your pin back in. Let's head back over here. Now what we're going to do too, before we assemble this, we're just going to take our clips here and our wire brush, which I left over here. All right, so we had already cleaned up that side, that's good. All I'm doing is, on the back side here, just hit it to remove any possibility of like a rust scale being stuck there or anything like that, okay? That's all. Don't have to go crazy, don't have to go bananas. Just like that. Just like that. Because what happens is, the reason you want to clean all that stuff up is, when you have a rust buildup on here, it shortens the distance in here and can make the pad stick, get stuck, jammed up. And that's what I believe happened on the other side. So now, before I put these shims back on, got some brake lube here. And basically what I do is I'll coat the bare metal part of it, because that'll just help keep it from getting rust in between. Basically whatever I would do on my own car, I do on a customer's car. I do no different. So now you're gonna put the clips in place. Now a lot of people ask me, why don't I use the new clips that come with the new pads? I almost never do. Actually, I should have. I didn't look. Yeah, I actually have them backwards. See the witness marks on that? This one's supposed to be down here. And the rust is what made this thing get stuck. So now we're trying to seat everything in place. Sometimes that can be a little bit of a bear. What you might have to do too, since I knocked this out, if you see here, it's got this little wing. This wing is what actually catches and creates the gripping action inside the caliper bracket. So all I'm going to do is straighten it out slightly. But anyway, I started to mention, I don't know if I completed mentioning it, but the reason I don't use the shims that come with the kits is I have found way too often where they don't fit exactly right and they create problems. So now it's a matter of, you just got to seat that little piece at the bottom there. I hope I'm filming everything okay for you guys. Get it seated. Same thing with this one. I'm going to just straighten out those little wings slightly. Now we're going to make this thing sit in here. Just like that. Okay. So now everything is nicely seated. So now, add a little bit of gobbledygook here, a little bit of gobbledygook here. And there again, like I said, like I always say, you don't have to go bananas. Just a nice little coating. And then all is good in the world. Make sure everything's moving free. So now all we gotta do is wait for parts. I'm gonna get the other side apart and we're gonna clean that up. Pardon me, frog in my throat. All right, so same thing with this side. I already broke them free. I basically pulled the caliper bracket off. But maybe I'll show you what I was talking about with the two bolts. Now sometimes the caliper bolts are the same bolts, same thread pitch as these holes here. You know, the bolts that go in here, sometimes they're the same as those. Don't use them. Don't use them, because what'll happen is you'll ruin them or you'll mess up the ends of the threads, and then when you gotta go put the caliper back on, then you got a problem. So let me just do that. I'm not gonna walk you through cleaning this caliper bracket bridge on this side, but I'm gonna walk you through pulling this rotor off with the bolts. So let me just go find two that'll fit. I'll be right back. All right, so I got myself 2 bolts here, just spare bolts that I have. I always save old bolts because you never know. Spray a little PB blaster, peanut butter blaster, or WD-40 or something. And like I said, these are 8 125s. So we start to screw these in. And you can see them going in, and then once they start to bottom out, or once you feel them putting up some kind of resistance, like they stop, this is already starting to move. But once you feel them putting up some resistance, whack the rotor. You're going to whack it back and forth like that. And then usually what it'll do is I'll go in and start tightening it up some more, get it to make contact, put just a little bit of pressure on it, and you can feel it making a little bit of pressure, and then tap again until you get to a point where you can take the rotor off. So obviously these things weren't really rusted in place, so it wasn't that big a deal. On some vehicles too, you're going to get hung up on the parking brake, especially up north in the rust area, because the inside of the rotor, which I always thought was stupid, the inside of the rotor gets a rust edge built up right here, and it won't go past the brake shoes. And that creates a big problem. Now, when you're also doing this, see that rubber plug there? Put that rubber plug, swap it back over to the new rotor. Just make your life easier. All right. So I'm going to clean up that caliper bracket bridge, and we're going to go from there. Now, the one thing I did want to show you is this is where the outer pad was. I can feel like a mountain range here. There's so much rust built up on here. So it's pretty heavy. So now I understand why the pad got stuck. Even where the inner pad was is pretty heavy too. I'm surprised the inner pad didn't jam up. A lot of times if you get both pads that jam up, what will happen is it'll actually wear out the other side because this side's not braking enough. But when you get that, you'll usually find on the rear rotors, you'll find like the outer surface of it where the pads ride, you'll find like a lot of rust and stuff like that because the pad's never touching. So, but yeah, so we're just gonna get this cleaned up. I just wanted to show you that. All right, so what you wanna do now, actually let me make sure I'm recording. Hold on a second. Sometimes I worry when I got a mic on because I've done that before where it's been muted. Okay, clean rag, brake clean. Clean off your rotor. You just want to get the residual shipping oil off of there. That's all. There again, you don't have to go bananas, just on the braking surface itself, make sure you get as much of it off as possible. And now, like I told you before, that rubber pluggy, just pop it out. I'm pushing it with my finger from the backside to get it to come out. And just seat it into the new rotor. Sometimes it fights you a little bit, but just seat it into the new rotor, okay? And then what we're gonna do is, let's get the rotor in place. Now, I already cleaned this off with brake clean. A lot of times too, cleaning off with brake clean gets any junk off the hub that might be sitting there, dirt-wise, stuff that's loose. Run your fingers on it, make sure you don't feel anything that's gonna create an issue because you need to have a good surface for the rotor to sit on. The other thing too is, if you look closely, right there and right there are witness marks from those. So what I try to do is I always try to line everything back up. And especially if you're going with an old rotor. If you're using an old rotor and you're putting an old rotor back on because you had to do something in there or for whatever reason, you had to take the rotor off, who knows what you had to do. Always try to put it back in the same orientation because if there's holes in the hub flange here, like let's say there might be 2 holes here and a hole here, and you don't line them up as you go back together, you can actually wind up creating a knocking noise when you hit the brakes. So that's why I like to line everything up into those positions. So there, that thing is seated. It doesn't move easily, so I'm not worried about putting the lug nuts on. Because a lot of times I'll put lug nuts on. I don't know if I already explained it, but I did wire wheel these. So now, I'm going to put this in place on here. You're going to catch your bolts in the backside and into the bracket. Sometimes you got to play with it a little bit to get stuff to line up. I'll usually line up one, get it started, then line up the other. I'm doing it kind of blind. Let me lower you down and go from the backside so you can see it. All right. Never tighten up with the gear wrench end of your gear wrench. So I'm just using the box end to do this. I mean, you can if you want to. It's just going to shorten the life of your tools. Okay. There. I torqued it to the German torque spec, good and tight. So now, let's put the pads on. The pads have a single squealer clip that goes on. I hope you could see this. So the squealer clip is going to go to the inside of the pad, like this. And you want the squealer clip to be at the point of first contact, meaning the rotor goes this way. It goes on this side, it goes in a counterclockwise position. So you want that squealer to be at the base. And see how nice that pad fits? And it's always, the squealer always goes to the inside, unless otherwise noted for some reason. And see how nice and easy that outer one fit? Perfect. So I'm happy with that. Put said caliper on. Hopefully you could see everything that I'm doing. I think you can. All right. Now, same thing here. These things are just going to be good and tight. There is a torque spec. I don't know what it is. I'm not even going to look it up. Good and tight, like what you would make a spark plug. And there we go. That one side is done. Now, let's move to the other side. All right. Let me just move all my junk over here. Hang on a second. All right, we're going to rather rinse, repeat for this side. All right. Find a reasonably clean spot on the rag. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to do this one-handed and film at the same time. And same thing. Line up your marks, because if you don't line up your marks, like I said, you can make a noise. So I already cleaned this off. Blow it off just in case. Get this on. Now, what am I forgetting? I'm forgetting the rubber plug. So let me dig that out of the old rotor. digging it out right now. There it goes. That's set in place. So let me go get my flashlight. I'm going to let you watch me from this side while I do. Actually, I don't need my flashlight, but you can watch me from this side while I do this. And it's basically the same procedure as what I did on the other side. Catch your bolts, screw them in just like you saw on the other side. And when you tighten it, once again, do not use the gear wrench side. Okay. Once again, it's good and tight. Where did I put the clips? Where did I put the clips? There they are. I know you can't see me. Hang on. All right, so same thing. The pad on the inside is going to go here like this, inward. So you're going to put your squealer clip towards the bottom side and make sure when you snap it in place that you have it in that position like that. So now it's going to be in there, and that's the point of first contact because the rotor is turning clockwise. And now the pads slide in perfectly, nice and easy. The caliper goes on. Going to catch our caliper to bracket bolts. Never tighten anything up until you have everything caught in terms of like anything that you're doing. So like on this, it's really only 2 bolts for the bracket. Make sure that you get them both in before you bother trying to tighten them up. Good and tight. Good and tight. All right. So now I'm going to go put the wheels back on this thing and let it down, and we should just be about ready for a road test. All right, so we're going to go for a road test now. Now you just did brakes on something. This thing's irritating, whatever the heck this is. But anyway, you just did brakes on something. What is the very first thing you do when you get in the car? Before you start it, before you do anything. I go over this every time, and there's a reason I go over this, because I've seen too many accidents happen. So the very first thing you do is pump the brakes. So there you go, there's your brake pedal. Sometimes it won't go too far, and that one didn't. Sometimes it will. Sometimes it'll go 4 or 5 pumps before you get a pedal out of it. So just keep that in mind. I have seen several accidents over the years where somebody's done brakes, when they go back out of a bay or whatever, and had no brakes, panic, and then wind up smashing into something and hitting something or hitting somebody. I've seen it happen. So just please be mindful of that. It's something that's easily avoided. It's also something that's easily overlooked. So I try to beat that into everybody's head, because even sometimes I forget. Like, it gets sidetracked because you got so many things going on. But I try to remember it every single time. Usually I hit the brakes before I put it in gear. So, and a lot of cars nowadays have the push to start, so you have to hit the brake to make it start. So just something to think about. All right, so let's take this thing for a ride. Let's burnish the brakes and end this video. What does burnish the brakes mean? It means set them in place, basically break them in. So let's go for a ride. All right, so I'm just pulling out a lot now. There's several different methods to burnishing brakes. If you have an aftermarket performance brake system in your car, like if you do rally racing, road racing, drag racing, whatever. And let's say you got Willwood or Brembo or some specific, not just your everyday brakes that you would have on your everyday passenger car. If you have something specific like that, I would follow the manufacturer's recommendation on how to burnish their brakes. Basically set them. So the way I always do it is I'm going up the road here now. I'm hitting about 40, 45. And what I'll do is I will hit the brakes. So right now I'm hitting the brakes and I'm slowly coming to a stop. 40, 35, 30, 25. And I'm not even going to come to a stop because I don't want the brakes to actually sit there in one spot. Once I get off the main road here, I can actually explain it. But now I'm coming up to a traffic light. I'm off the brake completely. Switch lanes here. Same thing. I'm going to get it up to about 45. Front brakes are a little more picky about this. I know people that will go up the road and just absolutely wail on the brakes when they're brand new and get them to smoke and everything else, and then they leave it at that, and they have good luck doing that. But it's not what I do. I usually go, like right now I'm doing 50. So now I'm going to start to hit the brakes lightly. So now 50, now 45, 40. It's just consistent pressure on the pedal. Like light pressure. I'm not like trying to like slow the car down on a dime. But here I'm going to make a turn. I got it down to, now I spun it back up to about 45. So now I'm coming up on a traffic light. So now I'm just lightly hitting the brakes. I'm stopping way ahead of time. And 40, 35, 30, 20, 15. Now before I come to a complete stop, as you can see I'm still moving, I will take my foot off the brake. Because I don't want it to actually sit there at a complete stop with my foot on the brakes, because that can actually create a hot spot with the pad just sitting in one spot. When you're braking them in, that's what you don't want to do. That's like the main thing you don't want to do. So I'm just going to continue up this way a little bit. And I'm going to do that several times. Like right now I'm doing 45, I'm coming up on a traffic light where I'm going to make a turn, and I'm just slowly slowing down. 35, 30, 25, 20, but I'm never going to come to a complete stop and hold my foot on the brakes. If I had to come to a complete stop, what I would do is I would try to make every effort to make it where I had room in front of me so I could roll. So you recognize this road. This is the road where I saved that turtle that time. Same thing, I'm doing just about 50. I'm going up a hill. I'm sorry about the sun glare. There's nothing I can do about that. And I'm just going to start to slowly slow down. And I'm going to do this multiple times. And that's basically how you wind up burnishing the brakes. Just get them to basically set. All right. Well, let me just continue the road test. I'm not going to film the entire road test. When we get back to the shop, we'll end the video. All right. So road test went fine. Everything was good. No issues. Did everything as I expected it to do. Basically, the other thing too is, and this is a good point, I had come to find out that the other shop had recommended both calipers and hoses and everything else. But they obviously never tried to compress a piston. And also the estimate they gave was pretty astronomical. Okay? So, my point is, whenever somebody tells you that you need something, like if I tell somebody they need something, show me. Show me what I need is what you should be saying. Show me what I need and why you need it. Because if this customer came in for the first time to us, and well, regardless, and they asked me to show them why they needed rear brakes and why I needed to clean up those caliper brackets and make everything the way it was correct, show me why, and I would show you. And I would say, this is what's going on. This is what you need. If it could have needed a caliper, very, very well could have. why does it need a caliper? Well, I tried to compress it. It's not compressing. You need a caliper. And we were going to replace the hose too, because, you know, when calipers go bad, a lot of times hoses go bad also. You should do both at the same time. You 99 times out of 100, you do one, the other one fails shortly thereafter. Or you do a caliper and it turns out the hose was the problem. I've seen it before. But especially if you get something like that where the hose is no good and it's holding the caliper on, I would replace the caliper anyway, unless it's a relatively new caliper. You're talking a caliper on this. This is what, a 10-year-old vehicle now. So, had the hose failed, I would have put a caliper on it anyway. If it was mine, that's what I would have done. And like I said, I only do to customers' cars what I would do to my own cars. And I used to get in fights with the warranty administrators at the dealership, because we would get a car in. Let's just say the one it was prevalent on was the Pontiac minivan. What the heck did they call it? Pontiac, not Transport. They didn't call it a Transport. I don't remember what they called it now. The Pontiac minivan. It was this. It kind of looked like a Caravan. It wasn't when it was that ugly, weird refrigerator-looking vehicle. Maybe they did call it a Transport. I don't remember now what they called it. But anyway, they had a problem with rear wheel cylinders leaking. So I would get one in, and the thing would have 20,000 miles on it, and I would be checking, doing a complete check over. Like the customer came in for a 20,000 mile service, do a complete check over, pull the rear drums off, and I find one of the wheel cylinders leaking. I would put two on. That's what I would do on my own vehicle. And the dealer, the warranty administrator, the warranty guy from GM he would want to bounce the claim, meaning not pay for the claim. And it's like, why? Well, you only had one that was leaking. The other one would be leaking shortly anyway. What is the difference at this point? And they're like, well, you should only do what you would do on your own vehicle. That's what I would do on my own vehicle. You mean to tell me if this is your car, you would only do one wheel cylinder? Come on. Yeah, I used to get in arguments all the time with them in regards to stuff like that. Like one strut blew out, and they would only want to put one strut in. Yeah, now the car's going to ride all messed up. So, but anyway, it's another story. But so if somebody's telling you need something and it's, you need a lot of things or whatever, show me. It doesn't hurt to say show me. Even if you don't know what you're looking at, let them explain it to you. So that's it. All right, guys, I hope you got something out of that video. If you did, hit that like button. If you could, please subscribe. All right, have a great day. Keep wrenching. Oh, and if you could, look down in the description. I have links to Amazon products. If you could please give it a click. I'm not asking you to buy anything. If you do, even better. I do get a percentage, but if you could at least just give it a click, that would really help me out. All right, that's about it. All right, guys, have a great day. Keep wrenching.